Destiny went on the Hodgetwins podcast, known as the Twins podcast, to debate a whole ton of issues. And Destiny's been doing like a circuit, going from show to show to show. He's joined Jordan Peterson's show. He talked to Ben Shapiro recently. He's just been doing the circuit. And so now he's at the Hodgetwins podcast. And I've never made much of the Hodgetwins. It seems like to me it was a lot of like shock jock reaction content, which, I mean, I'm not saying in and of itself has no value. It's just not something that I take much interest in, and so I haven't really seen much. I'm sure they have opinions. It's just like most of the opinions I've seen is like, that's not a woman, that's a man. Trans women, Frank. It's like that. And I'm not saying that there's like no good points there. It's just when that's the aesthetic that I see from the outside, I don't have much interest digging deeper. But now that Destiny's debating them, this is the opportunity to give them their fair shot. I even heard that they debated some foreign policy. They debated some of the Ukraine, some of the Israels, some of all of the conflicts. And so I wanted to check out this back and forth that they had. Definitely because I heard the Hodgetwins audience is a little vicious, so I wonder how they reacted to a blue-haired liberal like Destiny. Let's check it out.
We got Steven here, also known as Destiny. How you doing, Steve?
Doing good. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Now, people call this, what do you call it? Being a cuck?
Yeah, that's the
You're
that's
a
the
cuck
one.
advocate.
Yeah.
So, we had some experience in that one. It was just a guy, he was like into watching people have sex with his wife. I said, I got a twin brother. Can I bring him along? He said, the more the merrier. Long story short, we had sex with his wife and he watched. I couldn't even get hard because he kept looking at me.
Was this the first time you guys had fucked in front of each other?
Yeah, it was like, it's weird because
it feels like you looking at yourself.
The weird. So you're straight. You're straight guy.
I'm like bi.
Okay.
Fake Alex Kyle Parker got a tier 1 subscription.
Thank you, Fake Alex Kyle Parker, for the tier 1 sub. We kind of just hit the ground running here, didn't we? If this is going to be the video, we're not watching the whole thing, okay? If this is the video, I'm sure that there's real politics in this somewhere, okay? If this is going to be the video, though, I'm not watching it. We'll see. We'll see.
Bisexual-ish.
Bisexual-ish?
Bisexual-ish. I don't think I'd ever date a guy. But I'll hook up with him.
What the fuck? That's gay-splaining. Like if my wife came home and I was down sucking a dude's cock, she would say I'm gay.
Would she say you're gay or that's gay?
I'm gay.
You are gay.
What is a woman to you?
What? Fuck, that's a really complicated question.
Man, come on, man.
That's an insanely fucking complicated question.
Yeah?
Okay, without diving too deep in all this dumbass shit, okay? Listen, okay? Jesus Christ, okay?
Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, episode 14. We got a...
Okay, let's get straight into it. I don't want to listen to all the intros again. I don't need to hear him push his supplements.
Fresh and fit. The main reason why we want you here is because majority of people that came on our podcast, it's been conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put myself in, I'm just having conservatives come on. I want to actually hear other people's perspectives.
Sure.
Right.
So, don't want to put myself in isolate myself like that.
Yeah, so we want to get your worldview, so we're going to ask you some questions.
Yeah.
What should we start with first? Relationships.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Relationships. Now, how many times have you been married?
Twice?
Twice.
Me too.
All right, good job.
Yeah.
Are you on your second one now? Or are you looking for your third?
No. This one's working. Yeah.
That's
The
good.
first one, I think I was just too young.
Okay.
I got married, I was 19, I was in the Marine Corps. And she got pregnant, and I was just trying to do the right thing. So,
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So.
My first one was, I'm not like a big marriage guy. The first one was because of, it's a long story, but no, it's not that long. But if you know what the FAFSA is for financial aid for college and shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you go to fill out the college student aid application and you're like, oh, are you an independent? Of course I am. Because you're thinking like your taxes, but the way that the college looks at you to be an independent or not, there's a whole other list of qualifications. So I've been away from my parents for 2 years, and then I realized that their gross income is going to determine my financial aid, even though I don't get any support from them. So you either join the military, have a kid, kill your parents, get married, and of all the options. So me and my girlfriend in high school, we got married for financial aid. It worked for financial aid, and And then my most recent wife, we got she was Swedish and I was American, so obviously I want to live with my fucking girlfriend. So the only way for her to live in the U.S. is to get a green card to get married. So
Yeah. My wife is an immigrant from Mexico City.
okay.
Yeah, she when Trump became president, she started freaking out. She thought she was going to get deported.
Yeah.
So
My wife too. My wife's from Jalisco.
But the thing is, a lot of people understand like politics and the TV. They scare a lot of immigrants, a lot of people of color. So she was actually a legal resident being in the country, but she went to CNN. I'm not sure where, MSNBC, but she actually thought that Trump was going to come to our door and deport her. So
Yeah.
she became
I've
a
heard, yeah,
citizen.
people have like, you said she was a lawful person, so she had the green card?
Mhm.
Yeah, and yeah, people say shit like that. It's like, if we're deporting the green card people, they
Mhm.
would have had to have gotten through, that's like 20, 30, 40 million people.
Yeah.
How many millions of people are they going to start deporting in the United
Yeah.
States? Like, there's no way that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people get in relationships for a lot of different reasons. But your relationships have kind of been what's the word I'm looking for?
Extraordinary.
No, unconventional.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now people call this what do you call it? Being a cuck.
Yeah, that's the,
You're
that's
a
the
cuck
one.
advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like what Adam 22 is kind of doing, right? He
Yeah,
had
for
a
a while.
post-
I don't know.
Yeah,
If,
yeah,
Yeah. But so I want to ask you this.
Mhm.
We have a little experience in this. Not actually. Well, we'll get to that.
Cuckoldry or?
I'll get to that.
Okay. Jesus. Okay.
So
Okay, can I be honest? I don't care about any of this. Destiny's not a cuck. He was in an open relationship as far as I'm aware. And I've seen so many people question him about his own relationship, and I'm just like, I just don't care. I couldn't care less. Can we skip this? Can we get to the actual like policy and shit? Do you guys care if I skip this? Do you guys want to just hear them call Destiny a cuck for like 3 minutes? Then Destiny say, I'm not a cuck. Then open really, I'm not interested. So you know what? I'm not even asking. We're skipping.
Which just seems.
anything like that. So keep that in mind. It's like all we had was pagers, right?
Yeah.
So I created an online account. Well, it's not.
Okay, let's skip.
It was like this.
That's still pretty wide.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Who you gonna fuck with that?
Oh, do you think they were really love marriages? You just did it for like.
I love the people, but I'm not like a marriage guy. I'll do it if I need to. Like if I date somebody and they're from like another country, it's like, well, we have to get married, otherwise we can't live together.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna do a fucking long distance relationship. But
It's just gay.
They fuck anything.
Yeah.
what
Like if I. If, like
does the homo and homosexual mean?
Wait,
It's
let's
about you
talk
people.
about gays. Okay,
I don't know if they go
let's,
after like family members or
Stuck my
whatever.
mic
It's just
over.
Yeah, they
random
go after
people.
let's get over
My
to the gay
daughters.
thing.
What the fuck?
Okay, so you're straight. You're a straight
I'm like bisexual-ish.
guy. Bisexual.
Bisexual-ish. I don't think I'd ever date a guy, but I'll hook up with him.
What the fuck?
I don't want to date a dude. It's
Yeah?
fucking gay.
What's
fuck?
What?
They're gonna fucking cuddle with a homie after sucking his dick? How fucking nasty would that be? Holy shit.
Well, when I think of bisexual, I think of gay.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
like
Then I'm either lying
that's
about the
like-
gay side or I'm lying about the straight
Yeah.
side. So I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out one day.
so you don't consider yourself gay? You're bisexual.
Yeah, like gay light.
that's gay splaining.
Yeah, because look, straight people have sex with straight people, right?
Yeah.
And then
Hopefully.
you have gay people. They'll fuck anything.
What you do?
That's why I say when I look at
Oh,
bisexual,
so it's like gay, like bisexual.
What
Your
does that
version of
even
bisexual,
mean?
or-
There are like gay people who only have like if you're a gay man, you're only gonna have sex with men. If you're a straight man, you're only gonna have sex with women. If you're a straight woman, you're only gonna have sex with men. And if you're a gay woman, you're only gonna have sex with women. So I don't know what they mean by have sex with anything. Different gay men have different standards when it comes to sexuality. I'm sure Brad Palumbo and Christian Watson and what they would consider like a nice gay relationship. They're two like more conservative gay men. It's gonna be very different than say I don't know like what the man at the local sauna and the gay sauna is gonna consider like a productive, healthy, or personally fulfilling sexual relationship.
yeah. When I think of bisexual, I just think of gay because gay people have sex with both. It's just gay.
They fuck anything.
Yeah.
What it?
What is
Like
that
if I-
again?
What
What
is the homo? And
what does that mean? Homosexual means that you're attracted to the same sex, not the opposite sex. Bisexual means you're attracted to both. So it'd be the bisexuals that would be the one that'd be closer to that description than the homosexuals.
homosexual mean? Doesn't that just mean one? Like you just fuck one thing?
I don't know. Well, homosexual.
Listen, if that's what gay is to you, then I'm gay. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yes,
if I
yes,
came
sir.
home,
Okay.
like if my wife came home and I was down sucking a dude's cock, she would say I'm gay.
Yeah.
Even though
Would you say you're gay or that's gay?
I'm gay.
You are gay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think how most people look
I
at it.
came across a couple online. This dude is dating a trans woman, and he said he sucks her off. She has a
Okay.
cute little penis that looks like a clitoris.
Okay.
He
So the
doesn't-
opposite of the Franken cock. Okay.
Yeah, but he doesn't consider himself gay.
Okay.
I was like, that's gay.
Why are you gay?
Do you see it differently or?
I mean, I guess you could. I don't know. I don't think.
I don't think that I feel like they're trying to find like a hard cutoff for gay, and anything that's like slightly either like it's like, it involves a penis, or if someone would ever look at a penis and go, then they become a homosexual. Like like any attraction to women is immediately canceled out, and they just become a homosexual. And a homosexual is anybody that will sleep with the same sex. Exclude, and like whether or not they'll sleep with the opposite sex as well doesn't seem to matter. I think it does, because like a gay man having romantic and sexual attraction to men, and the type of like feelings you feel, or like the type of person you would be attracted to if you're attracted to men, might be very different than women, or in many cases are. The type of traits, character traits, like social indicators. So I mean, there is a significant difference between somebody who would date a man and a woman, or somebody who would just date a man, or someone who would just date a woman.
Think about I guess I'm more interested in the underlying content than the label for it. I don't really care as much.
Yeah, you don't pay too much of what straight gay. You don't really care.
No, I don't really think too much about it now.
Yeah. So you ever think about marrying a guy since the women ain't working out?
It's a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
It would be easier, I think, because guys are just better in every way. That's why the red pill guys say don't live with your girlfriend, don't live with your wife. Just fucking move in with your bros who enable you to be better and stronger. And yeah.
So you slept with a guy before?
Hooked up with a guy before, yeah.
Hooked up? What do you mean, like just sucking cock?
Basically, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, slobbing on some. Yeah. We didn't have to break out the Vaseline you guys had.
Did they need to
Something
break
that,
out like the throw up gif? Like you asked him if he had sex with men, he answers, and you're like, "Oh my god, you sucked the dick!" Like you asked him. You asked him. You asked the man who told you that they're attracted to men, at least in some capacity. Like, do you have sex with men? Yes. And then you acted disgusted. You knew what you were gonna. You knew what you were digging up. You were digging up. You were asking about it.
No, hey,
Just baiting it.
Destiny's talking about this. Before the show started, I had this Vaseline right here because I can't find my chapstick. Okay. Yeah. What was I gonna go to?
Yeah, this whole cocksucking I didn't know you were
When did you
bisexual.
when did you first realize you was attracted to men?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it was like late 20s. I was like, oh, why not try it? Fuck it.
Really?
Sure, why not? You only live one life, you know?
Dude, you very open-minded.
Whatever, dude. I'll try anything once.
Wake up, I'm gonna suck a cock today. I've like I don't know. I've
Like
never...
I knew I was attracted to girls like
Yeah.
like very early age, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's pretty normal. I felt the same, yeah.
Yeah.
You were the same way.
Yeah. Everybody, it's the last week to enter the win. I keep.
We're already in an ad. We haven't like talked about any actual politics. How the ad has not been earned. The ad has not been earned at all. I don't want a Jeep Wrangler.
And then what do you think caused the bisexual stuff to come on?
Yeah.
Do you think it's like bad experiences with women, or
No, I think it's
Porn
just
or
trying it. Just curious.
do you watch porn?
I do indeed watch porn, yeah.
What
Think
made
that's
the
it.
gay come on? Bad experience with women or porn? Like there was so much research into there was so much attempts to do research to what makes people gay, and there's like a variety of conclusions people have come to. Nothing concrete. Some scientists believe that it's the chemicals that you were exposed to in the womb. Others believe it's social factors that you're exposed to at a young age. Others, some are completely uncontrollable by the individual. Some might be controlled. We don't know, but we don't know. We don't know what makes people gay. We can only make assumptions. But I mean, a bad experience with women? I don't know about that. I don't think there's any scientific backing to that. I guess they're just speculating.
Yeah, led to it because
What makes somebody like blue over red?
porn, man, that'd take you down some damn dark rabbit holes.
we speak from experience.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know. I've heard people talk about that, but I've never had that. Like, if you were to go through, like, when I go to jerk off to porn, I'm looking at, like, blowjobs or people fucking. I've never gone down, like, the crazy...
Oh yeah. Oh, give
I
it
would-
time.
Give it time. I mean, I'm 35. I feel like if it was going to happen, it would have happened by this point.
No, it's going to hit you when you least expect it.
Okay, yeah.
I went down some.
Because see,
darker-
porn, that shit puts a tumor in your brain, and then it
What?
metastasizes and goes to your dick. And it fucking like, man, I remember I came across the scene of a chick doing a dog. I was like, oh, this is hot. I was like, wait a minute. What the fuck is going on?
Was this before or after you finished?
I stop myself.
I feel like
This is not the show for me. This is not the show. This humor is not my vibe. I'm not vibing.
I feel like you could say the same for
This
like
is not something I'm bumping on the radio. Okay, I think my avoidance of the Hodgetwins has not been a sacrifice on my part.
any hobby. Like I
Yeah.
think that
When I say avoidance of the Hodgetwins, I just mean that I saw their content. I was like, oh, this doesn't interest me, and I moved on. Not that like I'm like scared of their content or anything.
you can jerk off to porn responsibly.
Yeah.
Or you
Yeah.
can go crazy with it, but I think that's
Yeah.
true like anything, right? Like
Yeah.
like you look at a video game, you can play a video game for an hour or
Right.
whatever, or you've got people who lose their entire fucking lives to games, like sitting up all day.
Yeah.
You can smoke some weed every now and then to relax or
Yeah.
hang out with friends, or you could be a guy that has to smoke every single fucking day because of
Yeah.
anxiety or just sleep or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
hobbies are good servants but bad masters, and too many people let their hobbies run their lives or whatever they get obsessed with. So,
Mhm.
That's true. You got to take accountability and take, be responsible for your own actions.
Yeah,
Too
but-
much porn can.
Yeah. You know what saved me?
What?
Christ.
Yeah,
He put his hands on me. I looked up, then I saw his blonde hair, blue eyes looking at me. He said, "Thou shalt not stroke of thy dick of any more." I was free.
Jesus.
Blue-eyed Jesus.
Yeah,
Huh?
his blonde blue eyes.
Moses left that commandment up on the mountain. That was the 11th one. God wasn't done inscribing yet.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, porn.
Wasn't it Moses who inscribed?
Yeah.
I think if you could do without it, it's probably good. But I think that's almost true of any kind of like vice-ish thing.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't play any games, it'd probably be better for you. If you didn't do any drugs, it'd probably be better for you. If you never drank alcohol, it'd be better for you.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, balance it out.
Well, it all depends on the person, really.
Mhm.
Some people, alcohol could be done recreational, and some people, it just turns into an addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. It all depends on the person, really.
I think the thing that frustrates me the most about talks about like bad vices, like porn or
Mhm.
drugs, is people never talk about like how to use them responsibly.
good
People take a
times.
zero-sum
Oh.
approach.
Yeah.
So if you walk around, it's like,
Yeah.
do you guys remember Dare?
Mm.
Dare, it was like the anti-drug shit. How old are you guys?
Oh, yeah, there.
Yeah, I'm old. I remember that.
Okay, yeah. It was a big, yeah. I grew up until I was like 25. I thought if I smoked marijuana, my fucking dick would fall off. I like the,
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
you just
that's
hear the
true.
dumbest shit. Yeah, I wish people just, rather than focusing on like, don't ever do this and don't ever do that, be like,
Mhm.
this is what you should be aware of. And if this is happening, you
Mhm.
probably need to slow down or you
Right.
need to stop. Like, yeah,
Right.
being aware of like signs that something is unhealthy rather than just like thinking some things are always good and some things are always bad, I think would be better. for
True.
people.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Very true.
People act like if you don't masturbate to porn,
That's a generally pretty progressive take on how drug regulation should work in the country, or how we should educate people about drugs. I'm surprised they strapped themselves to that at all. Maybe since it wasn't wrapped in progressive language, it was easier to sneak in. Or maybe the Hodgetwins are just two very good-willed individuals.
like 2 months you could fucking levitate or something. It's kind of,
Yeah.
Especially the Christian conservatives.
yeah, sometimes,
That's a
yeah.
sin.
Yeah.
You know, God's watching you when you bust your nuts.
And you know they're busted to the craziest shit too, because those guys are always looking at the wildest fucking shit, man.
The
My
conservatives.
God. Oh yeah, they always are. You go to like the Mormon fucking states, you look at that's like the highest instance of gay
Mhm.
porn and shit. I don't know why, but
Hey,
Oh,
do
gay
you
porn?
remember the you know who Turning Point USA is, right?
yeah, Charlie Kirk, right?
Yeah, Charlie Kirk. They had a porn star actually attend one of their events.
Well, she went there. She
Yeah.
wasn't invited, but she decided
yeah,
to pay the
yeah,
money
bought
and
tickets.
fly in. They found out who she was and they kicked her out.
I'm like, how did they find out who she was?
Every motherfucker is looking at. Wait a second.
Yeah, and they kicked her out.
I didn't like
That's
that.
the one thing. I don't believe in censorship, and us being conservatives, we don't like censorship, right? And then they do the exact same thing. Same
Well-
thing that goes for Candace.
What's kind of thing with the donors? They got donors
Yeah,
in his pictures. Money is the root of all evil. So
yeah,
Well, like the thing is with Candace Owens is she's like a schizophrenic. Like, she's like going on like a humble recently. Like Macron's wife is is actually a man, and I bet my entire reputation on the fact that Macron's wife is a man, and that Macron is a secret homosexual, and then the deep state is using homosexuality as a tool to hold politicians by the throat and use them to serve their rich. He's just like it's a bunch of nonsense. None of it backed up by fact, betting her whole reputation on something that's non-falsifiable because we can't look down her pants. There's no evidence that she's a man. So and so unless we're gonna do like a physical exam of Macron's wife, which is never gonna happen, like she'll never admit to that, but that's schizophrenia. She's going crazy. She's going off the deep end. And I mean, so personally, if that's the direction she's going to go into and that's the type of content she's going to put on her show, I wouldn't hire her to work for my media company because I would feel like my media company would not be taken credibly. Or that the type of stuff that we're reporting, if we have people under our brand making crazy allegations like that. I don't think I'm gonna have them with my brand. Not to mention her recent like painting of the war in Ukraine through the lens of Christianity, or painting World War II through the lens of Christianity, or painting every conflict through the lens of Christian prosecution complex is also very annoying.
But they call out the left when they do it, but they don't call it when they do it.
No.
I think that like the problem is that I think people sometimes take hard stances on stuff, and the stance is not. They think they've got like a really hard stance on a thing, but in reality, there's just some factual thing they disagree with. So like nobody is a free speech absolutist, because as soon as you say like, oh, well, should you be able to post child porn? Like it's like, okay, well, no, not that.
Right.
Oh, okay. Should you be able to like post somebody's address and tell people to go kill them? Oh, okay, maybe not that. It's like, okay. So we're not like ultra free speech absolutists. There's some boundaries we have to draw. We just need to decide where to draw the boundaries. Same thing with like as controversial as they are, like vaccine mandates, right? Like I don't think anybody's actually opposed to vaccine mandates. If there was a disease that came out that lay dormant in your body and then caused you to die instantly in 2 weeks, and that had like a 80% mortality rate and infected everybody, I think everybody like, okay, you got to get fucking.
They'll be killing
vaccinated.
each other to get the vaccine.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
But if you've got a disease that like doesn't really affect people that much, it's a cold, and be like, well, if you don't get this vaccine, you're gonna get fucking fired. It's like, fuck you, I don't want to do this, yeah. But people will act like on both sides, like I'm pro-vaccine mandate or anti-vaccine mandate. It's like, well, not really. You just disagree about this particular one or the facts about this thing. Yeah,
That's what it really boiled down to. Because I'm not anti-vaccine, but I was opposed to that vaccine.
sure.
It just came out too fast. It's like, no, you got to test it. Normally, when a vaccine comes out, they test it for at least a decade.
It's got to keep you from getting sick. It's got to keep you from spreading it.
Yeah, it's got to give
what
you
was your-
immunity.
Yeah, that's what I would think. What was your take on that COVID vaccine?
I mean, like the vaccine was tested. It was tested. They put it through a crash course of testing, and it was Trump, their guy, as far as I'm aware, who was the guy who kind of pushed it through with Operation Warp Speed. And the pushing through of the vaccine so quickly is one of the few things I actually give Trump credit for.
I think that when people are
Even though I have no clue how much of it was his idea.
things like medicine, okay?
Mhm.
Here's something that's really important to understand about medicine. If you have a medication and then you've got like not anything happening, okay? It is always better to never take the medicine. All medicine is bad for you.
Everything has a side effect.
Yes. But the problem is people will compare taking the medicine to nothing happening, but you don't take medicine or nothing happens. You're trying to compare the medicine to the disease of whatever it is you're going to get. So people will look at like a vaccine or a particular, pill or whatever, and they'll say, well, if you have this, it's this side effect and that side effect and that side effect. It's like, okay, well, we're not comparing that to not taking it at all. Let's compare it to if you get the thing it's supposed to prevent. Well, what does that do, right? I think that the challenging part for COVID, and a lot of people don't remember this, is nobody really knew what was going to happen at the time.
Yeah,
right?
it first came.
Yeah, nobody, is this going to be like a 2% mortality thing or 10% mortality thing? Like nobody had an idea, and it was super infectious. This thing spread faster than fucking like anything in the world in terms of like number of people that were impacted. Because it's a respiratory disease. It's not like you get it and your eyes are bleeding and everybody stays away from you. Like nobody's getting fucking mass Ebola, okay, in the Western world, because the motherfucker's walking looking like the Walking Dead, okay? Get this guy the fuck away from me, okay?
You can see him coming.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas if some guy comes up to you and he's got like a sniffle in his nose, this guy might be infecting 30 people. You have no fucking idea. Yeah. So I think that, yeah, I mean, at the time, I could definitely understand the fear. You're trying to stay ahead of the unknown because you don't know exactly how things are going to play out. So in that sense, like, I mean, it's hard to know what side to fall on. Like for this particular virus, even though a lot of people died and there was a lot of congestion in the healthcare system, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. But like, there's another world where, where we took the same path and it ended up being something that had like a 25 or 30% mortality rate. We're like, well, fuck, we just like bled off like 50 to 100 million people in this country. And then the worldwide stuff. So yeah, it's hard. Yeah. When you evaluate things, you have to be able to go back and then do it prospectively. Like, well, what did we know at the time? Rather than look back, it's like, okay, well, this is what we know now. And this is what we should have done with what we know now. And it's like, well, nothing, unfortunately, works that way in life.
Yeah, it's just with that vaccine, when it first came out, it's like, yeah, it keeps you from getting sick and it keeps you from spreading it. And then I think it first started in Israel. They were the first to like fully vaccinate their population. Yeah. And then they were still getting sick. And I was like, wait a minute.
Well, first off, I'm pretty sure the Israelis had their own domestically produced vaccine, which is different than the vaccine that we had in the United States, whether it's Pfizer, Moderna, the rest of the vaccines. But I mean, the point of the vaccine was never the point of the vaccine is to stop people from getting sick, but the vaccine was never advertised as 100% guaranteed to do that. Or if it was, the person advertising it that way was, well, lying. because the vaccine doesn't do that. But it does lower the percentage chance of you getting sick. It does make it so that if you do get sick, and this is really important, that the conditions that, the symptoms that you have are going to be less severe. So it lowers the likelihood of death and lowers the necessary need for hospitalization, which removes a lot of the strain on the healthcare system, which was, people forget about it, overwhelmingly burdened all across the country. Just talk to some of the healthcare workers who had to work in those wards dealing with those patients about the type of workload that they were facing, about the hours that they were working. And then everybody wanted to dismiss it and laugh at that because they recorded some TikTok, because a few nurses recorded TikTok videos dancing. It was ridiculous.
Then they changed they moved the goalposts as well. You can still get sick and you can still transmit it, but you're less likely to die from it. I'm like, what am I supposed to believe?
Yeah.
Like they moved the goalposts at the end, and it's like, I don't think that vaccine personally.
Again, the vaccine in Israel and the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine are are different vaccines.
Anecdotally, I don't think it was very effective.
I mean, playing Monday morning quarterback, I think we should have just took care of the elderly, people with comorbidities. But I don't think it should have been forced on anyone. I think it was up to the person's choice. I mean, we give women.
I mean, for me, if you were in the armed forces, and I at least know the person on the right was, I don't know about the person on the left. In the armed forces, you get a million different vaccines, especially if you're going to get deployed anywhere. Then you get even more vaccines. And you don't know every vaccine you got. Ask the guy on the right. He has no clue. Ask any of the soldier all the vaccines. They're not going to know. They just know that they don't want to get sick wherever they're going, and they have to get it for the job, so it is what it is. And so, I don't know, seeing the objection to the vaccine being mandatory in the armed forces was the thing that made me know that it was performative. Because if the vaccine is mandatory in the armed forces, and then there's an objection to that, but there's not been any objection to the vaccines before, this is an example of this specific vaccine getting hyper-politicized, and then that slowly oozing into the rest of vaccines, which is dangerous. Because if we just have the issue of vaccines in general get politicized, then we can have real differences in the rates of death between groups of different political leanings when diseases or anything that could be transferable like that could kill you hits the country. I mean, we already know about some measles resurgences and stuff that's concerning, but that data already exists, where conservatives were more likely to die from COVID than areas which were more liberal and more likely to actually get vaccinated. Now, that was just one disease. That's just one instance. But if this spreads into the rest of vaccines, which I know that there are anti-vaccine advocates trying to do that, either to profit and grift or because they really believe it, who knows, that could have really detrimental health effects on the country and really undermine our health education as a nation.
A right to choose when it comes to pregnancy. Why don't we give them a right to choose when it comes to a vaccine?
Well, for the right to choose for the pregnancy is because she can't make me pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
A woman was walking around saying some shit, and all of a sudden people around her were getting pregnant. Then we'd probably have a lot more of a different feeling about it, right? But a pregnancy is like your body, your thing.
Yeah, but
I
that
think
vaccine did not keep you from infecting other people.
Yeah.
So I think
it had the same efficacy of a flu shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, flu shots help. It's not perfect, but I mean, it helps. The initial vaccines were really effective for the first and then the Delta, but then after that, they started to fall off pretty significantly because of how mutated the virus
Does this have timestamps? No, it's a premiere.
was getting. I think the goal of the vaccine initially, and if you go back and you read all the actual medical literature, it said this, but the public health messaging was messed up. The goal was twofold. One was to prevent you from getting sick, and then the other was hopefully, that was the goal. The goal was to prevent you from getting sick. Now, a byproduct of not getting sick is that you hopefully don't spread as much, because you're not getting you're not contracting the virus, and then that's like a side effect that you're looking for. A lot of things and it
lowers the other goal of it was to, I don't know if the goal of it necessarily, but I think one of the goals was to lessen the intensity if you get sick. But I mean, if that was not the goal, that was what it also achieved.
Comes down to just information about diseases that people aren't aware of. So you can have like a virus. Just because you get infected doesn't mean you necessarily get sick. Like a virus and a disease are technically, in the literature, they're two different things, like HIV and AIDS, right? You can have HIV now your whole life and never develop AIDS because of the medical treatment and everything. For COVID, you've got the virus, SARS-CoV-2, right? You can get the virus, But if you've had like a prior infection or if you've got a vaccine, ideally you get the virus and it kind of like, fucks around a little bit, but then it dies before you actually get the disease and you get sick. Then if you're not sick, you're not coughing, and you're not spreading as much. But the spreading of the disease is not something that is usually tested for in vaccines. Like even for like polio and all these other vaccines, when you get them, you can still get the virus, but like your immune system will kill it before you actually like develop a full-blown sickness.
I understand your point of view. I think it's
By the way, this title on this article right here is scary because what somebody, and I'm not saying that AP was trying to misreport this. I know good AP reporters, but if somebody reads it's more polio cases now caused by vaccines than by wild virus, someone could take the conclusion from this that like, oh my gosh, the polio vaccine is a risk for me. It could give me polio, and then they stop getting vaccinated, and then we get more wild cases, and then we have a problem because the way it can spread, I mean, the polio deaths that we used to have and that we have now, I mean, it's incomparable.
Before you actually like develop.
It's like when people talk about I forget exactly what it was called, but there was this chance that if you got vaccinated, that you could have some sort of heart problem that could cause you to die. And it was a real issue, but it was a very, very small probability. But people would point towards that and say, it's riskier for somebody to get that, to get the shot, to get the Fauci-ouchie because of that comorbidity than if I was just to go get vaccinated. And so they would point to that data to show how vaccines are dangerous. What they didn't know, or they wouldn't talk about, is that if you were to catch COVID, that comorbidity for that heart problem is like double or triple the percentage like likely. So it's more likely if you catch COVID than through using the vaccine for you to have that comorbidity. And so that's how like a little restricted information could lead to somebody taking bad health choices. Just how somebody reading this might make them think, oh, I don't need to give my kid the polio vaccine. I don't want to give him polio. And then you have a problem where polio could get out of control again because people are misunderstanding exactly what the vaccine achieves statistically compared to like what polio was like before when we didn't have vaccines.
Full-blown sickness.
I understand your point of view. I think it's I think when it
Thank you. Somebody brought it up. It's myocarditis, I believe it was pronounced, something like that. Yeah.
To
It got
medium,
politicized.
It got politicized.
It's been so long since we talked about this issue. I'm trying. There's dust and cobwebs getting cleared up in the back of my head on this.
And then you have journalists that's, a majority of I wouldn't say the majority, a lot of the money they were receiving, from ads and things of that nature.
Got a conflict of
It's a
interest.
huge conflict of interest because these people who developed this vaccine made a lot of billionaires. But I can't go back to the empirical research where it actually saved people's
Myocarditis.
lives.
There you go.
Sure.
Myocarditis.
This is the thing that I wish it would happen. It's so hard. Is that sometimes people will fuck up or say something dumb, but then instead of like critically evaluating what's going on, people will just like jump to the other opinion, and then they don't do as much critical evaluation there, right? Like let's say I wanted to sell
This is
you
true.
like TRT, and I come up here and I tell you that creatine causes baldness, right? Which is a common claim of people, right? I imagine you're probably going to look at me like, okay, well, yeah, you're selling this. Of course you want me to think this about, the most studied fucking supplement of all time. And you're going to tell me that it causes baldness or whatever. I don't know what you guys think about that. But I feel like, yeah, people will look at the vaccine and they'll go, okay, well, like there are just so many things that bother me. People say, I don't trust the vaccine. It was pushed through too quickly, whatever. But monoclonal antibodies.
Just because of like, I know how YouTube is, and I know how YouTube's treated me in the past, we're going to skip a little bit through the vaccine segment. Plus, I want to hear the other things they have to talk about anyway, besides this.
Conservative, like that's like a conservative thing now. Or like if a boat fucking crashes into a bridge, it's because some Mossad fucking agent did it to distract from fucking Israel. Or there's a fucking fire in Hawaii in the fucking hottest place in the it's because like Jewish space lasers are trying to drive up property costs for Oprah Winfrey or whatever. Yeah, it's like Jesus. Yeah, like nothing can happen anymore without it being some crazy fucking conspiracy.
Tom Clancy
I've
syndrome.
had like people close to me that was like damaged by that vaccine. Like
Yeah.
my friend's legs,
Oh, they're still on this, huh?
big people. They were obese. They were not healthy people.
Okay, let's keep going.
$100 billion. Okay, decent sized companies. But then I'm thinking like, well, if we're like running the economy, why would the military industrial complex
Okay.
Getting vaccinated, who still died from therapies, and then they stopped.
to have like lockdowns and vaccines? Say things like Lockheed Martin or Boeing.
Oh,
Let's like we're
Defense
talking like
companies,
all the. So here's something that's always interesting me. People say things like Lockheed Martin or Boeing, like the military industrial complex. They like run the country. Okay, if you only look these companies up, these companies are worth anywhere from like 10 to $100 billion. Okay, decent sized companies. But then I'm thinking like, well, if we're like running the economy, why would the military industrial complex do things that puts the entire economy like on pause that hurts everybody? So like wars or conflict or whatever. Why wouldn't it be the people that own like fucking Apple and Facebook? Because these companies are worth like Apple alone is worth like every fucking private military contractor combined. Like, wouldn't they be the ones that control the economy? Wouldn't it be more like the US is like, I want to go to war with that, and like Lockheed and Boeing and Raytheon, these guys are like, yeah, let's go. And then like Apple is like, we're not doing that. Actually, fuck you, or I'll hire an actual Haitian death squad to kill you if you.
Right.
Yeah,
I think it's a different dynamic.
Okay.
I think the reason why that information was not allowed to come out, who's going to put that information out there?
Donald Trump?
It's going to be the media. The media is being paid hundreds of millions of dollars to push this vaccine.
Oh my God, they're still on the vaccine. Okay, let's do a big jump. Big jump.
Yeah. I mean, what you do should be based on science. There's not enough research with this. Yeah. I think they
Still on
it
vaccines.
hurts. The kid latches on. It's like a little fucking rabbit just about to bite your fucking nipple off. So it's nothing. That dude's getting sucked.
Okay.
That's a dude. There's no nipple. It's just sick.
Here,
This shit needs to be banned.
This is the
I don't even want to know what they're discussing. We're just gonna skip again.
Hey, you see what the fuck he did? He changed the subject.
I'm just saying words are
Look at- no, you
complicated.
changed
Like
the
when
fucking subject.
people say like, oh, what is a woman? And it's like, give me a definition of it. But like, what is a
Okay,
table?
they're talking about what's a woman. Okay, that's something at least.
Not a same.
And somebody says, oh, a woman just walked. Send you an idea. I can't do it. It's impossible because our brains are separate. So what? No, I don't think I'd ever be okay. That's a really, really extreme. Yeah, I don't think bondage surgery for under 18, but I don't think anybody really supports that. That's like the most extreme people.
So you're like with the dick skin, the circumcision. So you're
Hey, shut up. Hey, what? Like, since we're on the transgender thing,
Yeah.
what is a woman to you?
What? Fuck, that's a really complicated question.
man. Come on, man.
That's an insanely fucking complicated question.
Yeah.
Here,
Okay.
without diving too deep in all this dumbass shit, okay? Listen,
Yeah.
okay? Jesus Christ, okay?
Take it easy.
If I tell you a thing, okay? Okay. In philosophy, there's a thing called a qualia, okay? So like, what is it like to experience something, okay? Behind you is a red curtain. If you'd never seen the color red before, and I say, there's a red curtain behind you, I can never actually express what that qualia is to you. You're not going to know unless you experience it yourself, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So there are things that we experience, and when we have two brains, okay, I can never send you an idea. I can't do it. It's impossible because our brains are separate. So what I do is I speak a word, and when I say something, I hope that you have an experience that maps onto that. So when I say like, oh, this blanket is really soft, you might think soft like, oh, like a dog or a kitty cat or a pillow. You've got other experiences that map onto it, right? For all of the language that we use, when we say words, there's a whole bunch of associated concepts that like pop up when we say those words. Now, they might not map cleanly onto some universal, Platonistic form of a thing. So for instance, when I say table and I tell you to define a table, you can never give me a definition that encompasses all tables and excludes all things that aren't tables, right? Do they always have four legs? Does this one have four legs? Does it have one? Is it something you can sit on or not? Like, it's really complicated. So when you say like, well, what is like a woman? Well, when you say woman, depending on the context, it lights up a whole bunch of concepts. So woman, they tend to dress a certain way. They tend to have certain hair. They tend to exhibit certain like characteristics. They tend to have certain body parts. They tend to have certain, right? So a woman, it really kind of depends on the circumstance, right? Like if I'm in let's say that I'm in school, right? And I'm like a grade schooler and somebody says, oh, a woman just walked by. Well, in that case, you're probably speaking more to age than like genitals or whatever, right? Because it's like, oh, a woman, oh shit, like Mrs. Whoever is
I
coming
think when a
across
woman, when somebody said that, I think of tits and a vagina.
Sure, maybe, but like you might meet somebody.
No,
or,
not maybe. A woman walks by and someone say, "Oh, she's got tits and a vagina."
But not you're associating behaviors way more. When you see somebody in a store and you identify them as a man or a woman, you're never seeing their genitals. You have no fucking idea. You don't know if that guy's got a
I could
dick or a
totally
pussy.
look at you and I could tell you're a guy.
Yeah,
I might have the tightest binding in the fucking world on right now, hiding the 32 double D's. It's like fucking
99%.
You're totally a man.
Sure, but like you're making that evaluation based on probably my voice, probably my fucking beard, but maybe shape of my body. You're not actually seeing my genitals, though. You know.
Man, for me, it's like woman is a social role, and I always thought, and this is how it was always explained to me: gender and sex are different. Gender is the social role of what being a man and what a woman is, and fulfilling that. Women are frilly and, wear sundresses and la-di-da, cooking, cleaning. At least that's what how society views a social role. Well, men, we bang rocks together and go to Jupiter because we're stupider. You get the idea. There's a social role for men, and then there's like the sexual biology, right? The sex. You cannot really change the chromosomes. You might be able to change the parts you have, but you cannot change the chromosomes. And if I'm trying to think about how gender can both best serve people, and if somebody looks like a woman, acts like a woman, interacts with society every day as a woman would interact, and people are treating them as a woman, and they want to be treated as a woman, and it could lead to better psychological outcomes for them. And so for an every intended purpose outside of reproduction and what's between their legs, and even that can be changed, maybe the chromosomes can't, at least not yet, and that those are things that all build up into the different markers that would classify a woman. And so for me, for all intents and purposes, that is a woman. It might not be a woman when it comes to the biology, as in the sex, but when it comes to the social role, when it comes to their lived experience as to what how society treats them, if they act this way, they are a woman. Now, this doesn't explain all like trans experiences or all women experiences, but if we're making it strict that a woman is just who has a vagina and who has boobs, then what we're saying is that person is not a woman, it's a man purely based on the biology, and all of the rest of those social classifiers do not matter, and we should throw out all social function and just base this sociological concept off of what's between our legs and what's on our chest. When I think human beings are probably a lot more complex than that.
Or at least I don't think you are.
I can tell you got a cock.
Yeah.
I can totally
I have to
tell.
wrap it around my leg twice to get the fucking, yeah.
Yeah, you can tell. Like, female and male is not complicated, but people overcomplicate it to fit their narrative.
You say, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but like even when you say like people overcomplicate it, like gender and like how we express it is like it is a pretty complicated phenomenon.
But
right?
it's so complicated that you can't even define it. That's the problem.
Well, because we typically don't. We just kind of like when we use words.
Like there's whole podcasts about male-female interactions and how men are supposed to go out there and get the women and how the dating's supposed to work. I mean, the red pill space has made careers out of this, right? Yeah, the social relationships between men and women and what individuals are comfortable in relation to the social relationships and what makes them feel good, what, matches with their lived experience. Yeah, it is complicated. It is.
We don't have like strict definitions of like what a word is. And we even playfully joke about this. Like, is a hot dog a sandwich, right? How crazy is it that sandwiches are things that everybody's familiar with, but you can't actually give like a strict definition of what a sandwich is? Or does cereal count as a soup? Well, yes or no. Or fucking, if you're in fucking Texas, does chili have beans in it, right? People fucking fight you to the death on this shit.
A hot dog is not a sandwich.
Okay.
It's a fucking hot dog. Look here.
Hamburger's not a sandwich. It's a hamburger. A sandwich is just 2 slices of bread.
Wait, a hamburger?
Bitch.
Hamburger's not a sandwich?
No, it's a hamburger. A sandwich. This is a sandwich. I'm going to define what a sandwich is.
Okay.
All right. Hot dog. Bun. Weenie. Hot dog. Hamburger. Patty.
Hey, Kevin.
Bun.
What about a chicken
Hamburger.
sandwich? Chicken sandwich.
It's all
Chicken sandwich.
Kevin.
Bun. Well, it's different.
Oh, sorry. I just thought that fun. Chicken sandwich is not wait a second.
Now, a sandwich, typically when I think of a sandwich, when I typically think of a sandwich, I think of 2 slices of bread and whatever meat,
ham, cheese, lettuce,
ham, cheese,
tomato.
all the works.
But they're
Right.
all fucking sandwiches, Kevin. It's bread and a meat.
What about a patty melt, like sourdough toast? Is that a sandwich or is that a...
Is it wrapped in
Hey, look,
lettuce
you-
or a bun?
Hey, you see what the fuck he did? He changed the subject.
I'm just saying words
Look
are
here, no, you
complicated.
changed
Like
the fucking
when
subject. What you did.
people say like, oh, what is a woman? And it's like, give me a definition of it. But like, what is a table? What is a chair? Like any word to define. You're talking
This
about
is my
it's
definition of a
particular
woman.
versus universal. Yeah,
This
go
is-
for it.
This
Give
is
me
my
a-
definition of
Okay,
woman.
go for it.
A human being with female reproductive parts.
Okay.
That's what a woman is.
So if a woman was to say get in a bad accident, lose her lower half, let's say a Russian female soldier loses her bottom half, is she still a woman because she has boobs? If she had them surgically removed, would she no longer be a woman? Or does it just boil down to the chromosomes?
If you want to say that, that's fine. But our use case for it is we don't usually identify people that way. We usually identify people by the way they dress and the way they appear outwardly.
We've always identified women that way.
No, we identify people.
Really?
90% of the
Sex.
time. No, based on how they look.
When you're doing the dating pool, is it like, hi, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on that blind date. This is really nice. Yeah, I don't think that's being done. And I don't think many women would appreciate that either.
Look.
Pre-date pussy checks is not something that's going to go in chic, I think. Going to become popular.
Yeah.
Their
Yeah.
sex.
But who chooses how to look that way? Men dress a certain way because that's how men tend to dress that way.
Mhm.
Women like things that women like to do. That's why women like to wear makeup. They like to wear dresses. Men don't really like to wear that type.
I mean,
of
but
stuff.
it depends. I mean, you look at
Like the genders choose how they want.
According to these people, this person would be a woman. Yep, Buck Angel would be a woman. Well, I mean, would he? Because he doesn't have the reproductive like parts anymore. He's had them removed and replaced with, you know, male parts. I mean, he's a porn star, Buck Angel. So would he count? I think they'd boil it down to the chromosomes. Would it become a woman once the sex change operation has gone through? That wouldn't make much sense. So I think ultimately they would boil it down to the chromosomes determining it.
represent themselves.
They do, but we also feed back into each other. And we give like if you look at how you take guys out of the fucking 60s and shit that were
Yeah.
pop stars and shit, you throw them into
70s,
today.
80s. Hell,
Yeah, you got some. Yeah, you
Yeah.
got some crazy shit. Or
Yeah.
even in the 90s and 2000s, rappers wearing fucking earrings and shit.
Yeah.
In white communities, people like my kids are gonna wear a fucking earring or jewelry
but
or
they
whatever,
still
or like
knew what the-
metrosexuals. Like,
Yeah. But
Yeah.
the problem is
But
they
they-
still knew there was men and they still knew there was
Yeah,
women.
Michael Jackson, if he was born today, he'd probably be trans. Prince, he'd probably
Sure.
be trans.
Yeah.
What?
They all like that one group.
Motley Crue.
All those rock bands, they were like long hair, very feminine. Got
Yeah.
all the bitches though. They still knew that they were men.
But just having long hair doesn't make you a woman,
I understand.
or make you trans, or make you have gender dysmorphia, or make you feel like no.
What you're saying
It's
is
so
what I'm
complicated
saying
that you
it's,
can't-
it's well, it's not complicated. It's
Yeah.
intuitive, but just because something is intuitive doesn't mean that there's not like a really sophisticated thing happening underneath, right? Like for instance, like you guys. Oh man, I used to watch your shit so long ago. I was gonna say you guys
What,
do
the
like
fitness stuff?
deadlifts, yeah, but
Yeah.
you don't because you call them back snaps. You don't do
I ain't
deadlifts.
breaking my damn
You
back.
you do squats or whatever.
Fuck no.
I got
leg
it.
Fuck,
press.
okay, none of the
Got a
gay
fat
exercise.
back,
Okay,
yeah.
well, fuck all that shit. Walking, okay,
Mhm.
is an incredibly complicated action. There's a ton of different things going on. You've got inner ear keeping balance. You've got eyes that are looking to make sure you're not like veering off course.
Mhm.
You've got like tons of muscle systems, right? But like you don't think about it. It's intuitive. You fucking you walk and talk at the same time, even though both those things. Like look at the Boston Dynamics robots. Like look at how many fucking millions of man hours of programming just to get a machine to fucking walk,
Mhm.
right? It's complicated, but it's intuitive, so you don't think much about it. I feel like the best evidence of like when you're thinking about like men and women or whatever is it's really funny, regardless of how you feel. If you look at like Ben Shapiro or if you look at Steven Crowder, sometimes these people will bring up trans people, and because they want to call them by their what they think they're correct, pronouns is like that's a man or whatever. When they're talking about the person though, they accidentally keep slipping into like, oh yeah, Dylan Mulvaney, was that a popular trans? I don't follow this shit.
Yeah.
That was a trans woman or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Whenever they refer to Dylan, keep saying, "Oh yeah, she's doing this." I mean, he. Yeah. I don't like Dylan because she said this. I mean, he said this, right? And I was like, okay, well, what's happening there? Is he confusing the sexual organs of the person, or are we just like mapping other things onto what we?
Well,
generally...
he's confused.
It's that you see Dylan Mulvaney looks like a woman, talks like a woman, in many instances acts like a woman, or like how a woman traditionally act, and so they're trying to play catch up because their senses are telling them in every sense of the word like, oh, this is a woman, so it's slipping out, and so they've got to course correct because that doesn't match with their ideology.
And and Dylan's confused.
I
Okay.
think it's
Yeah.
just a confusing
Am I?
situation for everybody.
But
They're
yeah. Sure.
confused and it confuses everybody else.
Yeah. I'm not trying to say, by the way, also that like men and women don't map onto very real different like sexual characteristics. They
Mhm.
clearly do, right? There are
Mhm.
different reproductive systems, different reproductive gametes that like are almost always mapped onto male to male and female to female. Like that's almost always true. I'm just saying that in society, in common parlance, when we talk about like a man or a woman, there's a lot of stuff with language is super complicated that we don't realize is happening when we say things.
I
That's all.
just think women have tits and vaginas, dudes have nuts and balls and cocks.
Yeah, and most of the time that'll be true, but
But
Yeah.
even if let's say I want to be a woman,
Mhm.
I could dress like a woman. I get all sexy. I could be the baddest bitch on the block, standing on the corner making all kinds of money. It still doesn't change the fact that I'm actually a guy.
Yeah.
well, I guess the question is, so language exists because there's some utility, right? Like the
Mhm.
reason why we say words is because we get something out of it. I'm invoking some idea. I'm
True. That's
getting some kind of
stealing my
response from you. Like
argument.
that's why we have words, right?
Right.
So the question, I guess, is like, what does it mean to be a man or woman in like a given circumstance? Because that's going to determine like these. Like if you go to the hospital,
Mhm.
regardless of what the fuck, how you identify or whatever, like your actual biological sex is probably going to be really important depending on what you're looking at, right? You're not going to
Right.
go to the hospital for a pap smear if you're a guy.
Yeah, you will
Um,
if you're trans woman.
Okay, yeah. But if you are, but that's what I'm saying, right? You're gonna like the biological sex could be really important there. But like if you're, let's say that you're standing on the street corner, okay, and let's say that you lose all your muscle and you're the most lithe, nubile, beautiful, young-looking fucking
I'm a
woman
bad
ever.
bitch.
Sure. And let's say somebody sends a drive-by down the street and it's like, I want you to shoot every fucking woman you see. And a guy drives by and he sees you in your beautiful, ornate, flowery, sundress, and the guy unloads on you, and you're like, oh no, I'm not a woman, I'm a man. Well, in that case, it didn't really matter. He identified you as a woman. He clocked you as that.
Yeah, tricked him.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you could
I
say
deceived him.
maybe. Yeah. But
My position is this: transgender LGBTQ has confused and
It's just for me, like if it's that they have to have a vagina, then does that mean if a woman was to have an injury down there or something that would destroy that or eliminate that organ, would they no longer be a woman? If we're trying to boil it down to these two organs, then if these two organs are taken away, are they no longer a woman? Again, I think they just boil it down to the chromosomes then, but I don't see the social function there. Boiling it down to the chromosomes, if there's a better social purpose derived from a trans woman being able to operate, identifying as a woman, treated as a woman, and functionally acts in all purposes except for reproduction as a woman.
and it's overwhelmed people with
In fact, here's a question. Let's say there's a woman who has a terrible accident, loses her boobs and loses her vagina for whatever reason, like just some terrible accident, loses her ability to have children. And then a trans woman transitions, has boobs, has vagina, went through the transition, can't have children. She has boobs, she has a vagina. Who's more of a woman? Is it the one who has boobs and a vagina, or is it the one without boobs and a vagina but has the chromosomes? If we're boiling it down to this. This is just, for me, like, there's not an answer to that question. I don't think there's this one's more of a woman, this one's more. I don't think there's like I could check a box there. I think it's a question doesn't really have an answer. But I assume they would have to have one, right?
identity or gender identity that nobody can give or present a honest definition of what a woman. And because of that, now you got men going inside of female restrooms. You got men competing against females. You got men trying to breastfeed kids. If you don't have a definition for what a woman is, then the women, these transgender women, will affirm their gender by minimizing women. Because the only way a transgender woman can affirm and be an actual woman is to minimize another woman.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe they shouldn't be competing in sports because that would be bad for a variety of reasons. But like, I just want to say that like this thing relating to...
What does it mean by minimize a woman? Because like, minimize it in one fashion, because they don't have the reproductive health care, they're minimizing what being a woman means. But then you could say like a woman who doesn't perform the womanly functions that I assume as the Hodgetwins, they would also believe that, you know, a woman generally should do, a man generally should do. Are they doing that to women as well? Or like tomboy women doing that? Or are women who cannot produce reproductive, cannot produce children, are they doing that as well?
Trans, like gender, sex, or whatever, like none of this is unique. Like we've fought over gender identity and gender expression for probably for thousands of years over like what does a man look like, what does a man do, what does a woman look like, what does a woman do. Like these are things that like, and we should continue to push on it and champion the things that we believe are true. I feel like one big problem today that really sucks is kids today are getting way too much attention. So whereas, in my, even when I was growing up, like you might believe or do some dumb shit in high school and college, but like you'll grow out of it. Everybody knows you will. But now with social media, now if you've got a dumb idea or whatever, you might be a worldwide famous Twitter star or TikTok star at 18 or 19. And now moving on from those ideas feels a lot different. And you're getting way more validation and it's going to make it harder to kind of like...
Yeah, but that's like for a very small subset of the population. I don't know how much this applies to this conversation.
Grow up and shed maybe some of the stuff that isn't as true, which is I think a huge problem. Because like people are like, and I know this is true for both of you, whether you admit it or not, we all believed and did fucking unbelievably retarded shit when we were kids. You're never more sure of what everything is in the world than when you're an 18, 19-year-old man ever. That's when you are the highest point of confidence. And I believe that did so much dumb shit. But that's fine. You should believe in crazy, stupid things when you're a kid because that's what you do. You do it through college or whatever. That's always been historically the case. But now with the social media and all the attention, now it just makes it really hard for people to see that as a phase because they're getting a lot of validation externally that they probably...
Okay, we did vaccines, we did that. Let's move on.
Everybody that you see are like the crazy Arabs, Muslim Arabs,
Arabs.
Yeah, but so because they didn't have a government, you don't think they should have had a say so? And what?
I mean, like, well, the thing was they lost a war, right? Like they won
Oh,
that
God, I
territory.
don't know if I want to listen to Israel-Palestine debate. Can we skip that one too? We don't have much time left anyway.
Trying to take over the whole world. Now they created
But
a
the
Jewish state.
the Jewish people that moved there were just moving there. They bought land from Arabs. They moved Jewish people.
Oh
Right.
God, talking about Semitic peoples. Nope. Wait, why is this?
It's been well known that
Oh, there we go.
if
That's why there
Ukraine
haven't been
wants
a
to
member of
become a
NATO.
part of,
Oh, okay, Ukraine. We'll do this. This will be where we wrap up on, I guess.
Good episode going on. Hey, before we get to that, hey, over 94% of y'all are watching, but you ain't
I'll let this
subscribed.
play. I'll be
Kinda
right back.
bullshit
Use the
is that?
bathroom and then we'll wrap up.
Did you forget? We got a lot of damn good shows coming.
Yeah.
I mean, famous people.
Yeah.
I'm not having a bunch of plumbers and got some real people. Well, they real too, but
No, they ain't.
they ain't famous. I got famous people coming on. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications so y'all get notified whenever we got a damn new show coming.
Well, these people, they got brains. They know how to subscribe. And
Well, the white producers is telling us to say that shit.
so you're a Joe Biden supporter?
I'm a huge Joe Biden supporter. Yeah.
dude, you're too smart to be a Joe Biden supporter. Dude,
You
you're
actually are.
very smart, articulate. How the fuck can you support that?
Well, it's really easy because I see the person on the other end of the ticket is Donald Trump. So I'm a very.
I mean,
So what has Joe Biden did that's going
Yeah.
to get your vote these 4 years?
I think our foreign policy aims right now are a lot more noble. So the conflicts that we're involved in right now are Ukraine, Russia. I'm a strong supporter of Ukraine, and then Israel, Palestine. I think that there's at least like a strong argument to be involved in this. The fact that he followed through on getting us out of Afghanistan, the fact that we pulled out of that Saudi coalition to like bomb the
I
fuck
like
out
the
of
way you
Yemen.
pulled out Afghanistan. That was perfect.
That was beautiful.
Okay, we're talking about Biden's foreign policy. Got you.
The way
He
he
couldn't
did
have
that.
did it any better.
Well, listen, Donald Trump negotiated the timetable. He's the one that left him there with like
Right.
4,000 fucking troops or whatever.
Well,
but
but-
at least we got the fuck out. At least we're out.
He should have did it
We're
better.
fucking out. I don't give a fuck. We're out. We finally 20 years. We're fucking out.
Dude,
okay?
I see 747 people's clinging on to it.
Yeah.
And they're going up in the air. I was like,
Yeah, because they know they're flying to America, the best goddamn country on the fucking planet. I'd cling to a plane too if I had to stay in fucking Afghanistan. Okay, listen, the great country. We're out. We're out. We're not talking about it anymore.
I gotta say, like, it's good that, like, we don't have soldiers dying in Afghanistan anymore. But you cannot pitch people falling off the side of a plane well. You can't. And people can tell me that there was no way to like organize it better. I don't really believe that. I do think that the deal that Trump negotiated certainly didn't get him off to a great start, and it left Biden with no good options. Like either extend it and possibly go back into conflict with the Taliban, or just go by the deal and possibly lead to a disorganized withdrawal where they're not going to be able to properly support the ANA. Like they didn't have a lot of good options, but man, that was not fantastically organized. No, but we are out, and he made the call to keep going out, even though there was others in the administration and within the defense establishment doing everything to stop Biden from pulling out of Afghanistan.
Well, that's all I
Biden
care about.
left
Okay,
Actual Americans there.
huh?
left Americans
that
left
pullout was
equipment.
so bad.
I'm pretty
he
sure
left
they got. I think
Americans.
by the end, every American got out because we would have been. Yeah, because we would be hearing about it nonstop if they had. I know.
I don't trust the media. You would not hear about that shit.
I think bro. I know a fucking who was the There's like a streamer dude that like goes to crazy places or a YouTuber guy, right? They got trapped in Afghanistan for a while, but he finally got out.
You got out.
Lord Miles, he's talking about.
I think our foreign policy aims, I think, are better. We're not as involved in as much stuff like around the world. Domestically,
The
oh, God.
Ukraine stuff.
The Israel stuff.
Yeah.
Well, let's go.
Well, yeah, those are the two, but I think those are
two
two.
wars.
I appreciate
We
those
had-
two.
We had peace under Trump.
Now, with all the conditions for
No.
war, we're brewing.
Okay, so Ukraine, Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Russia invades Ukraine. You were against that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm against war.
Yes, I was against the Russians invading.
Russia invades Ukraine. You were against that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm against war. I'm anti-war. But since Putin has been the president of Russia for decades, he's always said Ukraine cannot enter NATO.
That's not true. Destiny should grab him on this. In the early 2000s, Putin said it was up to the Ukrainians whether they made that decision in the 2002 interview. I remember the interview. I could pick up the interview if I wanted, and I could play it on stream. In fact, I might do that, actually. I'll see if I can find it. Probably can't, but you can look it up before. I've talked about it on stream before. I'm sure some of you guys can dig through one of my old videos or find it yourself.
Okay.
Because I want to protect my borders. That he's always made that known. Yeah.
That's
all
not-
of a sudden now, Ukraine wants to be a part of NATO. That's
Well,
why.
not all of a sudden. They've been wanting to be a part of NATO for a while. While there was disagreement within Ukraine about it, I mean, this conversation like picked up even more in 2008. So all of the sudden is more 15 something years like.
Why he invaded.
No.
That's why he invaded.
No, he invaded.
He's protecting.
This is reductive. This is super reductive. I believe that NATO was one element as to why Putin invaded, but it's super, super reductive.
Wants to be a part of NATO. That's why he invaded.
No.
That's why he invaded.
No, he invaded.
He's protecting his borders.
He invaded.
Well, he's not protecting his borders. He's violating the borders of another country. And like Ukraine was not close to joining NATO in 2024. He said all of a sudden they want to join NATO as if they were about to join NATO. Ukraine still had to deal with the French, the Germans, the Turks, the Hungarians, and all number of other NATO countries that did not want them to join. The Germans wanted to go through with Nord Stream 2. The Germans were more than eager to trade with the Russians. You think the Germans were going to give that a thumbs up? The Ukrainians had a door to join NATO that said, oh, sure, yeah, join NATO. Every time they pulled on it, it's going to be locked because of those countries. You need every single NATO country to agree to submit Ukraine into NATO. They were not going to achieve that. So to say that the reason that Putin invaded was because they were going to join NATO, my question would then be, how? How was Ukraine going to join NATO? There must be more to the story than is being let on around the NATO conversation. If there was no chance of Ukraine joining NATO any time in the near future, there was no path to join NATO unless there was a huge change in European political sentiment over the Ukrainians, and then the Russians invade. Now, we can listen to Putin, and himself, he could say, Ukraine is an extension of Russia. Ukraine doesn't really exist. Ukraine can only exist as an extension of Russia. We can point towards that ideology. We can point towards the invasion back in 2014 and tie it to the European Union and him wanting to control the Ukrainian economy and not allowing it to integrate, even though Yanukovych promised to integrate it into the European Union. We can talk about the liberalization of Ukraine and the corruption issue, which is also, I mean, there's so many different factors involved here, but to boil it down to Ukraine and NATO, when Ukraine was not even close to joining NATO, and to ignore the reasons Putin gave at the start, and to just boil it down to a chessboard, is the type of John Mearsheimer just looking at the world like a big shoots and ladders game that I'm not comfortable with. It's this hyper realism that has infected everybody's minds.
Did he invade?
He invaded because the guy that he wanted to be president in Ukraine ended up getting chased out of Ukraine in 2014.
It's not even hyper realism because, again, it wasn't going to join NATO anytime in the near future. There's so much more to this than that.
Invaded.
No, he invaded.
He's protecting his borders.
He invaded.
Why did he invade?
He invaded because the guy that he wanted to be president in Ukraine ended up getting chased out of Ukraine in 2014. Yanukovych got chased out after their Euromaidan protests because he wanted to take Ukraine in a more pro-Russian direction, and Ukraine wanted to go in a more pro-European Union direction. And Yanukovych was like, no, we're going to join like over here with the Russian customs union instead. And then there were huge protests and revolts against this.
Right.
And then eventually there were police that shot and killed
You
protesters.
don't think our intel agencies installed Zelensky?
No, I get it's always the same things. Just once I want something new. It's always the same things. No, I don't think the intelligence agency installed Zelensky because Zelensky won an open election and he wasn't installed after Euromaidan. After Euromaidan, there was the intermediary administration installed. Then there was election which Petro Poroshenko then won. And then Petro Poroshenko had his term in office. And then there was an election in 2019. And in that election, Zelensky won. He doesn't even know who was in charge of Ukraine during Euromaidan. He doesn't know who came into power after. Zelensky wasn't in power until like 5 years after Euromaidan was over. And he thinks that they were installed by the CIA. He literally just zero knowledge on Ukrainian history or affairs. I think Destiny is doing the best that he can given the circumstances, but this is a conversation that needs to happen between these types of people and like Ukrainian historians and like people who can explain every detail of this history. Because I saw like Destiny's conversation with Sebastian Gorka over Ukraine. And there was just stuff that he was letting slip, that he was only letting slip, not because he's not like a good debate bro, but because he didn't have access to the knowledge. He doesn't dig into it that level. And I don't know if he's going to be able to catch these things, man. I hope. Maybe he'll catch that.
I don't think so.
Well,
No, I didn't catch it. He didn't even catch it. He said Zelensky. Did the CIA install Zelensky? Again, Zelensky won an election. So unless they think, and that election was monitored by election monitors, it was, the exit polling data matched the end results. It was shown to be a free and fair election by all international monitors. So unless there was the secret CIA op was able to go under the radar and change the election results, and there's been no evidence provided, no, Zelensky was not installed by the CIA. But again, I don't think he's talking about 2019. I think that he thinks that Zelensky was installed after the Euromaidan revolution by the CIA. And he doesn't even know about Euromaidan. He just heard from someone else it was CIA and is now repeating it on the podcast.
Union instead.
Now he's saying he's asking a question, so maybe he doesn't think that. He's legitimately asking. I don't know. But the fact that this is the type of stuff that's still getting thrown around, going on 3 years of this war, shows a lack of education in the general American political sphere still about this issue, even though people will talk about it confidently. Like them confidently exclaiming, this is all about NATO. This is all about Russia wanting to protect its borders.
And then,
It's just that the Russians think that their borders extend into basically all of Ukraine.
there were huge protests and revolts against this,
Right.
and then eventually there
Well,
were police that
that's-
shot and killed
You
protesters.
don't
He
think
ran
our
away.
intel agencies installed Zelensky?
I don't think so.
But there's been speeches of Putin for decades. He's always told NATO, stay away from Ukraine.
It's not true, but again, whatever.
There's already 3 countries that are bordering fucking Russia. In the
But he's
Baltics.
been explicit about this for decades.
We had
He's-
agreement with him too.
And
No, he
there's
didn't.
been there's been
RFK said there was an agreement.
They're what
RFK
he
Jr.?
lied. RFK's a fucking moron. So
No.
that's great.
He said
He
the same
literally-
thing about you.
listen,
You're a Joe Biden.
This
supporter.
guy had a brainworm die of starvation in his head. Okay,
Listen, the brainworm.
a brainworm die of starvation in his
I
head.
don't even want to
okay?
on RFK.
I
I want to
don't-
stick
okay,
to the
listen.
Here it is. I found it. In May of 2002, Putin said Ukraine was entitled to decide on its own whether to join NATO, and that he did not see such a decision as one that would quote-unquote cloud Russian-Ukrainian relations. But by late 2004, the year Bulgaria, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Slovakia, and Slovenia joined NATO, and when Ukraine's Orange Revolution had hoisted to power pro-Western Viktor Yushchenko, Putin's mood had changed. And I quote, if Ukraine were to join the EU, this would be a positive factor that, unlike NATO expansion, would help strengthen the system of international relations. You know what's great about this quote and this back-to-back? By the way, for those who are interested about these quotes, Russia Matters is reposting them, but other places have reposted them as well. Is not only is this showing that Putin changed his tune once he saw that Ukrainian NATO ascension was actually maybe a possibility, and so he quickly changed his tune on the matter, as well as NATO's shifting dynamic with the Russians, but that as well. So it became a, sure, you could join, what you want to actually join, never mind, never mind, never mind. Like a politician engaging, choosing a referendum as an option because they want it just to tell them what they already believe, and then once the people vote the wrong way, no, you weren't allowed to vote that way. So sure, you can join NATO. Wait, NATO's actually expanding? Never mind. But the second part here, which is great, is in 2004, he says, no. NATO expansion, never mind. Take that off the table. Cringe. EU expansion, good. But then when the EU expanded in 2014, what did Putin do? He closed off the border, closed off trade, and then boxed in the government of Yanukovych, forcing him to go back on his promise to integrate with the European Union. The same thing that Putin said in 2004 was perfectly okay. Just like he said in 2002, it was okay for them to join NATO. So again, this is just, look, I spend all time on this stuff, so I understand that, you know, like I hyper focus on this stuff, but when you make claims like Putin has always said this, check. Don't just say it because you feel like that's probably true. You can check it. You can check it yourself. And they'll probably be fine because it's like, I doubt many people know these little tidbits of information of quotes that are like 20 years old, but it is aggravating to see this type of stuff again and again and again. And if these shows were just to bring on people who are from Ukraine, who have worked on the ground in Ukraine, who focus on this war, and not people like Destiny who can be kind of a generalist at times and debate kind of everything, it's horribly frustrating because there's so many people on the ground doing that work and none of them get any attention. None of the freelance journalists, not even the ones that work with the bigger outlets, getting attention on these shows. It's just the generalists, and I'm not saying that to be mean to Ukraine, they get brought on to debate it or talk about it. And I think in large part that's because none of them want to be left in deep water with somebody who knows what they're talking about. I'm not saying I know that about these two, but that seems to be the case in the alternative media sphere. And which is why, even though I'm part of the alternative media sphere, mainstream media and mainstream media associated organizations have ended up informing people, in my view, better than most of alternative media, because alternative media doesn't engage with experts. Mainstream media at least engages with experts on the issue. Even if mainstream media has to do it between Tampax commercials, only 8-minute segments, at least they're not bringing on people like Douglas McGregor or Scott Ritter to give people on the rundown on the CIA coup of Euromaidan, which is not informing people, it's misinforming people. You're working backwards. You're dragging people backwards from where they want to be.
Ukraine shit. Okay. All right, so
Yeah.
the reason why, okay, you said the reason why you think he invaded.
He had a leader that died that got kicked out that he supported, and now he was ass man. So he goes.
Can
into
you prove
Crimea.
that for a fact?
Well, yeah, Yanukovych fled after
Yeah,
the.
What does that mean? Can you prove that for a fact? I don't know. Go turn like Google Wikipedia. Like, what do you mean? Can you prove that Yanukovych fled? What do you mean? You need video footage of the helicopter like flying away? I can. You want proof? Here's proof. I'll find proof for the Hodge twins. By the way, and I'm not trying to be mean to Destiny or whatever, but like back-to-back milquetoast performances on the Gorka show and here on the Ukraine issue. Again, we're just starting on this, and maybe I'm just going in too hard. We'll watch a little bit more. Maybe Destiny starts getting more aggressive, but letting that Zelensky thing slip, oof, bad form. Bad form. But let me look this up. Viktor Yanukovych helicopter. Here it is. You want your proof? Here's your proof. Here's your proof. Can you prove that Yanukovych fled the country? Can you prove it had to do with that? Yeah, here you go. There's Yanukovych fleeing the country.
The BBC can't.
There he is. There's a picture of him. Do we need to watch the whole video? Is it deep faked?
He was ass man, so he goes.
Can
into
you prove
Crimea.
that for a fact?
Well,
Yes.
yeah, Yanukovych fled after
You ever
the.
heard that video of Putin? Like, he's always said this.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw this, but he's always warned NATO
Yeah.
if Ukraine becomes or wants to become.
There was never a
part of
conversation
NATO,
about Ukraine joining NATO. It wasn't even a thing.
There was an agreement for decades.
No,
Yeah.
that's why.
What do you mean for a decade? I just thought, wait. Earlier, it was all of a sudden Ukraine wants to join NATO. And now it's Ukraine had an agreement to join NATO for decades. I assume he's talking about the 2008 conversation in Budapest.
That's why the invasion happened after Yanukovych fled. He left, and 2014, and then that's when
But
Crimea got taken over.
Zelensky was already president, right?
No, this is in
Oh.
2014.
He didn't know. Oh my gosh. In a way, he just kind of Destiny didn't grab him on it earlier, but he came around and helped Destiny out and informed him of his own ignorance. Okay, that's good. That's good.
Is when Russia came in and they took over the peninsula, the Crimean
Yeah,
Peninsula.
2 years ago. Okay.
Я хочу еще раз все-таки подчеркнуть это. Я говорил, но мне очень бы хотелось, чтобы вы меня услышали все-таки в конце концов. И донесли это до своих читателей,
Should we,
зрителей
like,
и
speak
пользователей
this,
в
or?
интернете.
I can see it.
Но вы понимаете или нет, что если Украина будет в НАТО и военным путем будет возвращать себе Крым, европейские страны автоматически будут втянуты в военный конфликт с Россией. Конечно, значит...
You know, I'm just going to be blunt with my point. Ukraine didn't join NATO. Ukraine was blocked from joining NATO for ever since the 2008 meeting. There was no pathway for the foreseeable future for it. And so Zelensky went in as a conciliatory figure to quote unquote make peace with the Russians. It wasn't what he campaigned on the hardest. He campaigned mostly on anti-establishment, anti-corruption messages against Petro Poroshenko, an oligarch, after, the Euromaidan revolution, which is also largely based in anti-corruption sentiment. And there was generally anti-corruption sentiment. It's still anti-corruption sentiment as one of the biggest fights the Ukrainian people have to fight. He got in there under that type of mandate that he had chosen for himself, that chosen for his campaign, to make a deal with the Russians. And he tried, and he tried, and he tried. And he certainly wasn't building up the military power to take back Crimea. The Ukrainian army had 250,000 soldiers. The Russian army was supposed to be, at least before this, one of the most powerful armies in the world, is the largest country in the world, massive population in comparison. They were not gathering any force to take back Crimea. So what he's talking about, this scenario they're showing, was something that Ukraine wasn't doing. Now, they lied about it and said that Ukraine was planning an invasion of Russia, but they've never provided any evidence. We didn't see any Ukrainian troop movements that would show them invading Russia. None of that. None of that. And by the way, can I just throw out there, Ukraine is internationally recognized Ukrainian territory. Crimea is internationally recognized Ukrainian territory. So would it be legal for them to do it? Would it be moral for them to do it? I mean, I would say probably, almost certainly. But this wasn't even the thing that was up for debate or up for question because Zelensky wasn't pursuing that. So this scenario he's talking about was avoided and he invaded anyway. So this is not evidence for their claim. If anything, I'd point to it as evidence that Putin kept moving the goalposts. 2002, okay, they can join NATO. 2004, no, don't join NATO, join the EU. 2014, join an association agreement, not even join the EU, but just join an association agreement for visa-free travel. No, we need to shut down trade, invade Crimea, move on in there. Like, come on.
Потенциал объединенной организации НАТО и России несопоставим. Мы понимаем. Но мы также и понимаем, что Россия одна из ведущих ядерных держав, а по некоторым компонентам по современности даже многих опережает. Победителей не будет. И вы окажетесь втянутыми в этот конфликт помимо своей воли. И вы даже не успеете глазом моргнуть, когда будете исполнять пункт 5 Римского договора. Господин президент, конечно, не хочет этого развития, и я не хочу. И я не хочу. Поэтому он здесь и находится.
Another thing, Macron and so many others did everything they could to avoid the war. They talked to him, and they talked to him, and they talked to him. It didn't succeed in anything.
И мучает меня уже 6 часов подряд.
I guess you could say maybe they could have made more concessions, been like, fine, you can have half of Ukraine or something. But when it comes to like trying to be non-provocative, the West did that. They only started shipping the weapons in once the plans had been discovered by American intelligence that the Russians were planning to invade Ukraine. Then they started massively increasing weapon shipments to Ukraine, or at least increasing it marginally, leading to larger and larger amounts in a way that would prevent escalation to a broader war, or at least in the minds of the Biden administration.
Well, there's older videos too, but
Yeah.
It's been well known that if
That's why they
Ukraine
haven't been
wants
a
to
member of
become a
NATO.
part of NATO, it's going to be a problem.
Why though?
It was a problem when they didn't become part of NATO. It was a problem when they didn't. So, I mean, maybe the one organization that guarantees that Russia won't invade them, there's a reason Russia invading that country wouldn't have wanted them to join it.
Because he wants to protect his borders.
No, because he wants to invade and fuck with countries around him. That's
No,
what he
it's
did in
not.
Georgia. He invaded Georgia. He peeled off.
Why would he shake his head to that? Does he really just think like Putin's like a mild-mannered, polite guy who at the end of the day, like all he cares about is the survival of Russia? And let me ask you a question. Even if that's the case, what does Putin consider Russia? Because if he considers Ukraine Russia, or Estonia Russia, or Latvia, Lithuania Russia, just like the Germans considered large swaths of the territory around them, Germany, what they consider defending their country can easily become conquest, destruction, and death for the people around you.
Two territories. He invaded Moldova in '91. They did that. Georgia was 2008.
Putin didn't invade Moldova. The Rush again, man, even slip a tiny bit. The Russians invaded Moldova in the early 2000s under Yeltsin. It was under the Yeltsin administration. It was it claimed that they needed to defend the Russian speakers of Moldova because there'd been a big transfer of Russian speakers into Moldova during the Soviet period. They had done that in many parts of the Soviet Union. They did that in Ukraine. They had done that in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. They had done that in a bunch of countries.
I don't remember. And now you've got Ukraine a couple years ago where he's doing the exact same thing that he did to Georgia.
Yeah, I believe you, but I think his reason for entering Ukraine is protect his borders.
Bullshit. He's doing it. No. First of all, even if that was the reason, you don't get to make that call. You don't get to tell countries around you like you're not allowed to do what you want because fuck you. I want to
We
invade
do
you.
that all the time.
We
United
did that.
States. Well, we did that in the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
Russia.
Yeah, and what happened? Did the Cubans become capitalists again and join the United States? Do we have a capitalist leadership over in Cuba? Do we have a pro-American ally in Cuba? You know what we did? We made a deal where they would move nukes off of Cuba, but Cuba would still stay a Soviet ally. You know what we could do with the Russians? We'll make a deal. No nukes in Ukraine. Ukraine can stay an American ally. Wouldn't that be, if we were to make these comparisons, that would be the comparison, no? We make a treaty to say no long-range missiles that can deliver nuclear warheads in Ukraine, no nuclear, tactical, or even strategic nuclear weapons deployed in Ukraine, but we will make a long-term defense agreement that means the Russians cannot invade them or take their land.
Russia was going to put missiles in Cuba. USA blocked that because we wanted to protect our borders. They're just going to put missiles in
We didn't tell Cuba-
They want to put missiles in Cuba so they could hit America.
We didn't dictate Cuban alliances. We just said we don't want
we didn't
nuke.
Dylan, you got to get in on these debates. Number one, I don't got the reach Destiny has. It's not as useful for them. Number two, I know much more about this than Destiny does. Not to be mean to Destiny, I just do. I mean, this is all I've been focusing about for going on 3 years now, right? On the ground. And so like the risk to reward like math is like completely out of whack. I used to be invited to debate a lot more people in Ukraine. Then I stopped getting invited back because like there were some former congressional candidates that didn't do too well. Look, I just think that the risk reward doesn't match for a lot of these shows that bring me on. So while I ask around, it doesn't usually come back.
Nuclear missiles 100 miles off the coast of
And
Florida.
that
That's a different. That's a totally
That was
different
going
thing.
to start a nuclear war.
Yeah.
Russia decided to back off, and it ended that crisis. USA protected their borders. Russia can protect.
Wait. But then the debate would be about nuclear weapons in Ukraine, which we took the nuclear weapons out of Ukraine. We already settled this issue. If the question is we don't want nukes in Cuba because of the threat of annihilation that faces. Now, we didn't like the idea of Cuba being there, period, because, I mean, like Cuba being against this period, because, I mean, I guess you could imagine an invasion from Cuba. It wouldn't be really that great, but like, the main problem was the nukes. And in the early 90s, we made the Ukrainians give up their nuclear weapons in return for a treaty where we would come to their defense if their sovereignty was infringed upon. The Russians signed it too. It just happened to be the Russians were the ones infringing upon their national sovereignty. So, like, I would say in the 90s, when the Russians were requesting that we remove those nuclear weapons, and we helped them do it, and we made clear to the Ukrainians we'd make them an international pariah if they didn't give up their nuclear weapons, which the Ukrainians have a lot of resentment over that issue for, I think, at least semi-justifiable reasons. Like, that would be the comparison. That would be, we removed those nukes. So we did that part, and Ukraine still got invaded, even though the nuclear threat was abated. In fact, the Russians just made up their own new threat. They just said it was chemical, biological weapons that they've never been able to find before then using chemical weapons in Ukraine.
Russia's not protecting their borders. They're invading another country and stealing territory. Russia already has Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, 3 NATO-aligned countries that are already on the border of Russia. That, you know, so the idea that they need to invade Ukraine because they can't have a NATO country on their border. One, Ukraine is, we're not talking, or in the past, we weren't talking about Ukraine joining NATO. They never had a direct path, a member ascension plan or whatever to NATO. That wasn't even on the table. The reason why they invaded them is because they didn't want them to be a part of the European Union's trade market. They wanted to keep them as part of their economy. That's why. That's it. That's it. That's why they made it.
You don't think he's
I don't like Destiny saying that's it either, because now Destiny is being reductive. But that is definitely a large part of it. Much more of a part of it in 2014.
In a tactical position to preserve his borders of his country?
No, because he's not, because NATO doesn't invade Russia. NATO doesn't fight nuclear powers. We don't do that. We're not gonna invade, because if we were going to, we can just do it through the fucking Baltic. We do it we're the United States. We do it wherever the fuck.
Yeah, that would be the argument. And if this is the case, then the war also has been a massive failure because we've expanded the border with Russia by more than doubling it through Finnish accession. But we also have countries on Russia's border in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland, if you can include Kaliningrad.
His fucking pipeline. Why wouldn't NATO invade Russia?
Because that's not in Russian territory.
What did he just say?
Do that. We're not gonna invade, because if we were going to, we can just do it through the fucking Baltic. We do it we're the United States. We do whatever the fuck we want.
We blew up his fucking pipeline. Why wouldn't NATO invade Russia?
They declare war on Ukraine. The pipeline blows up. He says we did it. We don't have evidence we did it. There's actually substantial evidence that pro-Ukrainian forces did it, whether it was some partisans that are tied to some oligarch or it was Ukrainian intelligence. I don't know. But we don't have concrete evidence that we did it, so I don't know why he's immediately concluding it was us. But let's even say it was. That was after he invaded Ukraine. And that was a pipe into Europe. That's different than going and invading Russia, which Russia has always clearly indicated that would be a nuclear war if that was to happen. Just like if they invaded us, it would be nuclear war. That's always been the standard. That's always been the line. If we're going to now say industrial sabotage is on the same level as full-scale national invasion, then the Russians have already invaded Europe by doing industrial arson attacks in Germany, bombing attacks in Germany, arson attacks in Poland, attempting to do bombings on Polish railways, supplying weapons to Ukraine, arson attacks in the United Kingdom, intelligence operations in the United States, including infiltration operations using the Russian Orthodox Church. Like, come on.
Well, because that's not in Russian territory.
Yeah. So, from Putin's standpoint, he wants to protect his citizens, his country.
His citizens are never getting invaded. If anything.
Again, if we're saying protect his citizens, how are we going to say that when he's thrown so many of their lives, when their tactics are so reliant on leaning on that manpower advantage and throwing their men into the meat grinder while they're in a demographic crisis? And these veterans that are signing these contracts going out there, the country they're going to return to is not the same country they left. The economic prospects for Russia post-war sanctioned, divided from the West, cut off from the European market. I mean, Gazprom is reporting losses for like the first time, and who knows for what when. I have not been alive and remember Gazprom reporting a loss. The economic prospects for them down the line is only going to get worse and worse and worse as time goes on. And these little short-term fixes that the Russian government has implemented to keep the economy afloat, these are things that they're going to have to face. And so if we're just talking about from the perspective of, oh, he wants to help the Russian people, is it that he wants to help the Russian people, or is it that he wants to help his idea of Russian greatness, the Ruski Mir, the Russian world, fighting the Western degeneracy? I think there's much more than just he loves the Russian people. Because if he loved the Russian people, he wouldn't have thrown them into this war. At least the type of love he has is the same way that a husband loves his battered wife.
Having Ukraine being in NATO would probably provide more defense for Russia, because Ukraine is never doing shit
Of course, Putin lowered the penalties for battering your wife.
inside Russia if they're part of NATO, because they'll either get kicked the fuck out of NATO or the United States will shut them the fuck down, because now you're part of NATO. And if you attack people, Putin referenced Article 5. If you get attacked as a NATO member, Article 5 means that all the NATO members will come and help you.
And that's why Putin doesn't want Ukraine in NATO.
Yeah, because he
And
wants
that's
to
why
be able
he wants to
Ukraine
invade
and fuck
NATO.
with them.
I mean,
that's
you
what's
could-
happening. That's
He wants to
exactly what's
protect
happening.
He wants to protect his border.
Protect from what?
He's just repeating the same thing again. He just keeps repeating the same line again. It's actual NPC interaction, man.
Missiles.
NATO doesn't shoot missiles into Russia.
Since when?
Since the
Russia shot,
advent of Russia, or since the advent of NATO.
How do you know that's never going to happen?
If it is going to happen, Ukraine is not a big factor in it. We don't need Ukraine to invade Russia.
He saw what we did in Israel.
That's not
It's the
related
same-
to anything.
what does that mean?
the same thing.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think,
it's the same thing. He's just trying to protect his country.
yeah.
No.
That's the way I see it.
That
Yeah.
how is invading Ukraine protecting his country?
Because he's got a buffer zone between him and NATO.
He already had that,
But he already has countries bordering him that are
He
in
wants-
NATO.
What?
and that too. There, here you go. Destiny recovering.
I'm just telling you
Putin
what he
wants more
said.
countries.
Yeah, I know what
But he got more countries. Finland has a much bigger. Actually, does Finland or Ukraine have a bigger border with Russia? Either way, because of his invasion of Ukraine, more countries are terrified of the Russians and running to NATO, like Sweden and Finland.
What he
Said
said.
that's probably
He
right.
wants
You
that
don't believe
buffer zone.
Fauci, you don't believe Biden, but you believe fucking Putin. What the fuck?
I don't believe anybody.
Oh well, you're believing
I
Putin.
just
Well, let's
tell
look
you-
at what Putin says, and let's think about what's actually happening here.
try to-
He's invaded. He's invaded Moldova. That's why Transnistria
I
exists.
agree with
He
you.
invaded Georgia,
I
and he
agree.
peeled off territories there in
Again,
Southwest Asia.
Again,
and
it was not Putin that invaded Moldova. It was Yeltsin. It was Yeltsin that invaded Moldova.
invaded Moldova. That's why Transnistria exists.
agree with
He
you.
invaded Georgia,
I
and he
agree with
peeled
you.
off territories there, Southwest Asia and Askabat or whatever the fuck. And now he's invading Ukraine. He's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
This is for his defense?
Yeah,
No,
I
it's
agree
not.
with
Because he wants to invade countries to
But
fuck
of
with
course it
him.
is. But he says it's for his defense.
Yeah, that's the propaganda line.
Again, and I think Destiny's he wants to invade countries to fuck with them. Now that's stupid. That's like super red. I think he's dumbing it down quick since he said something like similar-ish, but like with a little bit more detail before that. But like, there's so many more. Like you could just like, I wish in these conversations they just took out Putin's speech from the start of the invasion and started reading off all of his like or any of the articles he's written, like Ukraine must be an extension of Russia and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just like use Putin's own words against him. If he wants to use Putin's words, you use Putin's words.
Yes.
No. He decides what he wants to do for his country. If he feels that
That he can
makes his
invade
country-
other people and take their territory?
well, he's made it known if you invade Ukraine,
Yeah.
it's a problem for me in Russia.
Yeah, but
Well, we didn't invade Ukraine. They invaded Ukraine.
Ukraine wasn't joining NATO. That wasn't happening.
They're joining NATO now.
was a
No, they're
negotiations.
not. No, there's not.
After they invaded, they said that they would then join NATO after the fact. It was basically like guaranteed at this point. Yes. After the war was over. After Russia invaded Ukraine for the second time in 10 years, when the West made commitments to Ukraine that they would defend them after disarming them from nuclear weapons. After that, if you want to guarantee Russia won't invade them again, they have to be in NATO. Because everything else hasn't worked. Everything else doesn't work. If you want to propose something, I'd love to hear the Hodgetwins proposal on how we can make it so Russia will never invade Ukraine again, outside of destroying Ukraine so there's nothing left to invade.
Yes, they
I
are.
promise there's not.
So you deny the fact that Ukraine wants
Like,
to.
I'm not 100% tied that they have to be in NATO, but they have to be in something that would guarantee that if the Russians invaded, that they would face overwhelming force that would deter them from ever doing it again, because it would be sure failure.
on NATO.
Or it would be so destructive that it could never justify taking that land.
No, there's not.
Yes, they
I
are.
promise there's not.
So you deny the fact that Ukraine wants to join NATO.
No. They want to join NATO. Yeah, because they got invaded by fucking Russia. Yeah.
No, before they even went down, there was in talks.
There have been talks. They've always been shot down because we knew it would cause too much instability for them to actually join.
I think the real reason
What
why,
instance?
Wait a minute, I think
Russia, right?
Because Russia would be ass mad about it.
Yeah,
I think the real reason.
You denied that though.
No.
He didn't deny that he'd be angry about it. He denied that that's the main reason he's invading, and or that was a likely possibility.
No, I'm not denying that they might have been ass mad about it, but that's not the reason why they invaded. They invaded because of their leader left. No, because Ukraine was never joining NATO. It wasn't going to happen.
But,
in order for you to join NATO, every single member has to sign off on it.
But you deny the fact that Ukraine is in bed with the United States. We supply them with weapons, missiles, tanks.
Yeah.
We supply them with all this.
After the Russians invaded, we didn't supply them with basically anything except for like radar systems so they could see the bombs coming at them until like I think the Javelins under the Trump administration. And even that was blocked by Trumpian politics as he tried to strong arm information out of Zelensky. We didn't start sending them these. We didn't even start sending the tanks until like a year into the big war because we didn't want to. We were like, oh, they couldn't deal with the logistical load and all these different justifications before eventually we did. Same thing with the jets. Same thing with the ATACMS. It took so much teeth pulling to get these moves from the Biden administration. You could say it was calculated moves to slowly increase shipments and increase the level of the type of equipment that's being sent over to avoid any big point of escalation. You could say all that. But it was like, from the Ukrainian perspective, certainly, like pulling teeth. So the idea that we were just like they were in bed with us, how? Like in bed with us that we gave them like some NED funding, in bed with them that we gave them a certain amount of financial aid, or like aid to deal with human smuggling, or in bed how? Because the stuff he's talking about was only done like in the last year and a half.
Why don't you think Putin will have a reasonable expectation if I don't invade Ukraine, then they're going to be able to turn Ukraine into an ally of the United States.
Again, we were not sending them that stuff until Russia invaded. And like, if Ukraine wanted that land back, you want to know something that they could have negotiated, and I think Zelensky would have very likely agreed to it, definitely since neutrality is already written into the Ukrainian constitution. We'll give you back Crimea, we'll give you back Donetsk, and we'll give you back Luhansk, on the condition that all NATO military cooperation ends, and you cannot join NATO ever. You don't think that that's something that a Ukrainian government would have considered, considering the steep odds against them to retake Crimea, to retake the city of Donetsk, to retake Luhansk? Why is it that the only way that Putin can be safe is the Ukrainians are under his thumb? Maybe it's because he said that ideologically, and this was what he said at the start of the war, that Ukraine must exist as an extension of Russia because Ukraine is Russia. There's an ideological dedication here. Like, people try to boil down all human beings, think to either A, they want the things that you want, or B, they think like a rational, like computer calculated, like strategist. That you can't take the ideology out of the man. You can't take the nationalism out of the man. You can't take the other interests at play out of the situation. This is all just too reductive for me. Maybe this is why Destiny isn't pushed as hard. These guys are mega dumb on this topic.
Why we're only supplying them with?
If they are, that should be like every time they, like, for example, when he said that Zelensky thing at the start, he should have been like, of course Zelensky wasn't installed. Why would you think Zelensky was installed by the CIA? He wasn't even in politics in 2014. He was a comedian.
Other shit because Putin invaded. If he hadn't invaded, this wouldn't be happening.
We wasn't giving them missiles, anything before that.
Before 2014?
Not even before. No. Destiny, no. Destiny, no. We were not giving the missiles all the way up until like the last year and a half. Like, the whole debate has been about whether we're going to send them ATACMS. Like, we just had this whole debate in public. We were not giving the missiles before 2014. We were not giving the missiles after 2014. We were not giving the missiles until way after the invasion started. In fact, not only did we not give the missiles, we took missiles away from the Ukrainians and gave them to the Russians. No shit. Real thing. That was what the Budapest Memorandum was about. Not only did they give up the nuclear warheads, they also gave up the delivery systems. And many of those delivery systems have been repackaged, filled with explosives, and then fired at Ukrainian cities, killing Ukrainians. My God. I can't imagine being a Ukrainian listening to these conversations. I couldn't imagine it. It makes my skin crawl now, and it just I understand it's like a very emotional topic for me. It's kind of personal, just through my friends and stuff like that. But I couldn't imagine what they must feel like. Oh my gosh.
I don't know what our military gives. Probably not that much.
Yeah,
no.
we supplied them what? The main reason
There's a
why
lot
I
of money.
think
They're just blazing on past. Just Destiny, just grab them on that. Be like, how do you know that? Like, we just had this debate for the last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, the whole war, about whether we should send them ATACMS. And you think we were sending them long-range missiles in 2015? Barack Obama was pressured to send these types of munitions by people like McCain. And you want to know what he did? He ignored them, and he sent them radar so they could see the bombs hitting them. That's what he did. And then Trump ignored him up until the end of his presidency, when Congress put something on his desk that had a veto-proof majority to send aid to Ukraine. He then held it up for a bit, tried to strong-arm Zelensky, sent through. Those were javelins. Those are weapons to take out advancing tanks. Those are nothing that could be launched into Russian territory. In fact, if it's such a threat, like this Western threat towards Russian territory, maybe Putin should be taking up the signals that the West was so hesitant to give Ukraine the ATACMS in the first place. And even this deep into the war, the American government still will not approve ATACMS strike in Russia proper. This far into the war still. So if there was like a threat to Russia proper and Ukraine's being used as that tool, we have the opportunity. Why are we waiting so long?
the main reason why I think Putin invade, he wants to protect his borders, which I understand you deny that, but they're in bed with the United States, and Putin sees that as a severe conflict, aggression to Russia.
Well, that's because he pushed them into the arms of the United States through aggressing upon them and trying to bully them around. The Ukrainians looked around for like who could counterbalance against the Russians, and who would have thought it was the one geopolitical hegemon of the 90s.
Okay. I mean, I'm just going by like what happened historically in 2014.
So we made them agree to give up their nuclear weapons. So of course they're in bed with us, but they were also technically in bed with the Russians under that agreement. It's just of the two parties, one was infringing upon them, so they went to the other party, the United States.
The leader that he supported got kicked out of the country when a bunch of cops started shooting and killing civilians. After that happened, he invaded Crimea. And we can make up weird stories about NATO, but NATO was not on the table for Ukraine at that point. That's not what the conversation was about. The conversation was about joining the European Union or joining the Russian customs union with Belarus. Like that was the conversation on the table, and then they rejected that, and then he invaded. And now he's like, well, NATO can't blah, 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 blah. Yeah, he doesn't want them to be part of NATO because he wants to be able to bully the fuck out of them with his military.
Yeah, I think that and let me say this, and you tell me what you think. Okay. I think the main reason why what's going on in Israel and Ukraine is because poor leadership, and then the United States has broken promises with Russia.
Let's hear it.
What promises?
To not get in bed with Ukraine.
We didn't make that promise. We never made that commitment. When was that? When did we make the commitment to not help Ukraine? We were sending aid to the Ukrainians in the 90s during like the worst like period in Ukrainian economic history ever, when they were breaking records for inflation. We had an agreement to not get in bed with it. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? There's no agreement. There's none. Let me hear the don't mess around with Ukraine agreement that was agreed to. Let me hear it.
No,
NATO and that whole thing. Yeah.
NATO and the whole thing. Well, that explains it.
The
like
2014,
it's real
the
easy
United States was not in bed.
Yeah, but it's real easy for United States, Fox News, CNN, to say, "Oh, Russians, Putin's a killer. Oh, he's a mass murderer."
Because this is what it is right there. It's giving up the game. This is the mainstream position is supporting Ukraine, so I gotta take the alternative position. And the thing is, like, that's what it feels like from this angle. And if that's what you do, you can think you're a critical thinker. You can think that you're like going against the grain. But if you just take the opposite position of whatever the mainstream is, you're letting the mainstream media determine your position anyway. You're just letting it do it in reverse. If I take one step forward and you take one step back, I take one step back, you take one step forward, you're still my bitch.
Obviously is, right?
He might
Excuse my language.
But I
The United
don't believe...
States says too. We dropped a bomb on Japan and killed 300,000 people.
Yeah,
we're all murderers and killers. Everyone.
80 years ago.
Yeah,
the world changes. It does matter.
The United States of America have killed way more people
We're the biggest terrorists in the world.
We
What is that? What do you mean we've killed more people like as of recent or like direct? What is this even like in reference to like relative to what? Like if the Russians had our power, would they have killed as many people as we have or more? That's a good question to ask. But also like this is a question of means. There's a question of means. Like the Russians have far less means than us, and they've started the largest war in Europe since World War II. That's something that scares me. If they had the means that we had, what would they be doing?
move through time and things change as time evolves, right? We're not going to say that like because we did some things because we had a certain foreign policy during the Cold War, which by the way the Soviet Union did as well. We live by those same standards. Like foreign policy and everything changes over time.
Why is it that all of these alt media conservative shows always will come out and carry water for the Russians? Carry water for the invasive power, bans freedom of speech, goes after freedom of religion, lynches evangelicals, lynches Baptists, takes over the churches, replaces them with military bases. Why are conservatives carrying water for that man? Why? Is it just because he's anti-woke in his opening speech? He railed against J.K. Rowling? Is it because it's not the mainstream media position? Is it because Putin has been working for years and the intelligence services of Russia have been working for years to make inroads on the fringes in politics and on alternative media sites? You can get more of the fringe? Maybe a combination of all these things. I don't know.
The way that we
just the spreading of misinformation, good, effective misinfo game from Russian intelligence on major social media platforms. What is it?
Conduct warfare and the things that we're involved in change.
Maybe just a spillover of isolationism after the war on terror.
Over time.
Yeah, but it doesn't give you the opportunity to go back on promises.
Yeah, but I don't think that we've gone back on promises for Russia. Or what is the promise we've gone back on?
We in bed with Ukraine.
There's not a promise that we wouldn't get in bed with Ukraine. I have no clue what he's committing to. What is he talking about? I feel like I would have figured out that we made some commitment to never be friends with Ukraine somewhere. I feel like I would have known this.
Ukraine.
Like one of the big complaints, and this is how I know they don't even listen to Putin that much, from Putin has been that the West for years would not commit to not allowing Ukraine in NATO, right? So that assumes a non-commitment, a non-agreement, an agreement that he wished was there but is not there. That was the primary complaint for Putin for years. So not only is there not a complaint, there's not an agreement on this, the primary complaint from Putin for years has been that there wasn't an agreement on it.
Going into NATO. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's been seriously on the table. They wanted to join, but it's
when everybody
after the war now, that would be the idea, is at least the what people are planning for.
Gets fucking nuked. You're gonna know why. I guarantee it.
Yeah. Well, that's a good argument for me to take then, because if we get fucking nuked, you'll never be able to say I told you so. So fuck you. Okay.
No, I'm gonna call you. Hey, I'm still alive.
Yeah, the bomb is coming in.
The nukes is gonna hit in 3 minutes. So you fucking Dick Jordan, they don't know. Look what the fuck's happening. Yeah. I don't know. I thought that was pretty understood that what Putin wanted. Yeah. That's why he invaded.
I think he just wants to exert control over his border partners and bully the fuck out of them, because that's what he's done.
Or protect his people. And his
I don't think he cares about his people that much. If he was, I don't think he'd be doing this war right now.
From my perspective, and I don't know why, it just kicked me back from the timestamp I was at, but we can honestly, this might be a good place to stop. But let me ask you guys a question. Do you think if Biden invaded a country and we lost 200 to 300,000, 500,000 casualties, if we had anything resembling that, anything close to that, anything that was half of that, if Biden produced 500,000 American casualties, that the reaction from these guys would be, well, I'm sure Biden did it because he wanted to protect America. That's the question I'm going to end on. Right there. Would that be the reaction? I doubt it. I don't want to react to any more of that. I've got enough brain damage. I've got enough brain damage. That's enough. That's enough. I set myself up for the whole weekend.